The most powerful weapon on Earth isn't a missile, it's a switch, and the United States has its hand on it. When that switch moves, accounts go dark, cargo waits, and respectable companies discover their balance sheet has no traction. No explosions, just a quiet no. Either way, the battlefield has moved from borders to ledgers, and the rules favor whoever controls the rails. If you can read those rails, you can ride the new wave instead of getting rolled by it. Here's the part that most people miss. Money isn't a pile of notes or a price on a screen. Money is custody, clearance, and confidence moving in sync. Custody is where the assets truly sit. Clearance is the network that allows them to move. Confidence is the shared belief that the system will say yes for you tomorrow. Pull any one of those pillars and money stops being money. It becomes numbers you can see but can't use, and that's the essence of weaponizing money. You've watched pieces of this play out in public. Reserves that once looked sacrosanct were immobilized. Banks that never took a vote became enforcers because losing access to dollar clearing is career-ending. Payment networks turned from pipes into policy instruments, deciding who gets speed and who gets sand in the gears. There's no need for planes or ships when a message can hold a shipment before the truck leaves the warehouse. Before we go deeper, I want to plant a question in your mind. There's a quiet deadline lurking in the background of global payments, a cutoff that will make screening sharper and routes more transparent. You haven't heard about it on the nightly news, but Treasury desks have. Keep that in your pocket for later because it explains why this power is getting stronger, not weaker. Let's break the mechanics into 3 levers so you can see the machine clearly. Lever 1 is custody. Where do the assets sit and under which court can they be ordered to freeze? If the answer ties back to a jurisdiction aligned with U.S. policy, those assets can be relabeled overnight. Possession isn't ownership without jurisdiction. This is why central banks, funds, and even ordinary investors are rethinking where their claims actually live, not just what those claims are called. Lever 2 is clearance. Payments don't move because a buyer and seller agree. They move because correspondent banks open a path, and messaging standards carry instructions across borders. Shut off access to those paths, and the trade is over, no matter what the invoice says. This is where sanctions, blacklists, and compliance tooling gain their bite. If you can end a company's week by slowing a settlement window by 48 hours, you don't need to seize anything. You only need to make everyone wait. Lever 3 is confidence. Confidence is the invisible fuel in every transaction. It's why a shipper loads a container before the cash clears, why suppliers extend terms, and why investors accept paper promises. Confidence rises when rules feel predictable and falls when the rules become a moving target. Weaponization works because it introduces doubt into the gray zone. If there's a risk that the switch flips on you next week, counterparties step back today. Now for a reality check that resets the conversation. You'll hear loud voices saying the dollar is finished by Friday. That story sells clicks, but it misses the network effect. The dollar still dominates because depth, legal finality, and round-the-clock liquidity beat slogans. That strength is exactly what makes access a lever. You can only weaponize one that everyone needs, and that's why control matters more than cheerleading for collapse. So what does a smart viewer do with this knowledge? Start by mapping exposure like an operator, not a tourist. List the rails you rely on. Which banks actually provide your correspondent access? Where does your broker clear? If you run a business, ask your institution how a payment would route if your primary corridor were restricted. Ask for a second route and a second relationship today, not the day you need it. Redundancy isn't paranoia. It's modern treasury hygiene. Think about custody with more precision than price. If your assets live on a platform, understand where legal title sits and which court resolves disputes. If you can't answer that in one sentence, fix it. Pros treat plumbing as strategy. They assume price will swing, but they make sure exit doors stay unlocked. Accounts are documented, and record keeping is clean enough to sail through automated screening. Here's a picture you'll remember. 2 firms, same revenue, same product, same cash. One keeps a backup account in a friendly jurisdiction, maintains a tested secondary payment route, and reviews counterparties every quarter. The other sticks with one provider because switching sounds annoying. A policy shock hits. Firm 1 slows down, reroutes, and ships. Firm 2 stops on a dime. The difference isn't price or talent. The difference is rails. You'll also hear about alternatives gaining steam. Some countries are building national payment systems and settling more trade in local currencies. Others are experimenting with digital settlement, tokenized collateral, and new cross-border networks. Don't dismiss any of it, but don't confuse pilot projects with scale. Systems win when speed, legal certainty, and global reach finally meet. Watch for where those three converge in live production, not in press photos. That's where the wave becomes investable. What should you do in practice? If you invest, diversify not only assets, but also rails and relationships. Keep a second broker ready, even if you don't use it this month. If you run a business, treat Treasury as a profit center. Keep a living map of cash routes, test small payments through alternate corridors, and make sure key vendors can be paid two ways. Create a clean records habit so automated screening likes you. There's a deeper mindset shift at stake here. Stop reacting to headlines and start reading the plumbing. When regulators publish new advisories, when a bank changes its risk appetite, when a payment network updates screening guidance, those aren't boring memos. They are compass points that tell you which channels are warming and which are cooling. Operators hear routing. You want to be in the second group. Let's resolve the question I planted earlier. The major networks that carry payment instructions are finishing a shift to richer message formats. As the coexistence period for the old format ends, every cross-border transfer carries more structured data about who's paying, for what, and with which references. For clean players, this strips friction because machines can match details without manual emails. For the gray zone, it removes hiding places because screening can read context, not just names. That's why the weapon is getting sharper even if no new laws are passed. The pipes themselves are becoming a targeting system. So here's a simple checklist you can act on this week. Know which jurisdictions actually govern your assets. Build payment optionality so a blocked corridor is a detour, not a disaster. Document counterparties with the exact names they use in banking so screening doesn't flag you for a typo. When the pipes change, the tide changes, and the winners are the ones who adjusted before the crowd notice. The United States is weaponizing money by turning access into policy. In a world where networks decide who gets paid and who gets paused, the edge goes to the people who understand the rails and plan 2 turns ahead. The switch exists. Your job is to keep your finger on your own. For operators, clarity beats drama. Preparation turns shocks into brief detours, not disasters, because routes can be switched before pressure arrives. If you want this level of signal every time and you value clear, fact-grounded breakdowns, subscribe now.